the worst. So
We can't hear you. I don't think your mic is.
I'll stand closer. So this is going to be pretty ugly meeting. So just be ready. There's, we have a lot of issues, and we're going to try to get information out and let you guys know where we're at. And then we're going to ask for your input too. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask Carl to go over where we're at budget wise and where we're going and see if you guys got input and some thoughts. We don't want this to be a total surprise to everybody, but just some of the things that we're looking at to try to balance the budget. You ready, Carl?
And I just want to add in there that we're glad you're all able to be here. Can you hear it all? No? Jeff's working on it.
Probably not straight now.
Testing. Is that any better?
Can you guys hear okay?
Can you guys hear me now?
Scott?
Everybody, all right?
No.
Yes, it is what it is.
Do you want to come sit up front?
But thank you.
You heard that. I'm grateful everyone's here. I like seeing y'all better a lot more when we're at a company party than here today. But I just want to reiterate that we are one county and we're in this together. So hopefully we can all come up with a solution that works for everyone. So thanks for taking time out of your day to be here. We appreciate you.
All right, so thanks everyone for being here. Go to the next slide. So here's where we are with the budget. Last year's budget, in the general fund, revenues were less than expenditures, $935,000. We did that for a number of reasons. We had issues with the city and the city's contract with the sheriff's office. A number of reasons we decided to pump that to this year. However, that number is not sustainable. The county typically runs expenditures over revenues, but nowhere near that much. And usually by the end of the year, that corrects itself. So usually we'll start off the year with budget and we'll be under 200, 300, sometimes 400, 500,000, but usually in the year positive 200,000, 300,000. This year we've had a lot of expenses between the Solano case, between paying for attorneys, some cases. We're not going to end up positive this year the way we typically do. So beyond that, everyone knows property tax didn't pass. However, the legislature last week reinstituted it in different formats. So the assessor's office is still working on putting together new sets of numbers, see where we're going to end up as far as property tax revenue. But without question, revenue is going to drop beyond what they were going to be going into this year if no changes were made. Property taxes are, of course, one of the biggest single line item for the general fund. Biggest single revenue source. We discussed before, health insurance rates are going to go up 13%. General rates are going to go up 8%. Property insurance rates are going to go up by 18%. We've also the case with Solano here versus the Board of County Commissioners. So this year we have to pay an extra $162,000. Next year we have to essentially fund his full request. 625, that's the number we have in for next year for district attorney's office. 2018, we were paying the district attorney about $130,000. That money doesn't come from nowhere. And of course, all of you know that inflation is still a problem. Prices keep going up at the gas pump, grocery stores. That affects the county as well. Go to the next slide. So I know there are a lot of concerns about the expenses the county has had. I want to distinguish between sort of ongoing money one-time money. County still has a lot of one-time money. Money that is, go ahead. Let me hear, thank you. Money that is grants, it is loans, it's things we've been saving up for multiple years. We have that money off in different funds. Or the general fund is, it's taxes and fees. Occasionally there are grants and general fund, things like that, not a big portion of the revenue sources. But that year over year, that ongoing money, that is payroll, that is utilities, that is office supplies, that's all your operational expenses. That's where we have a problem. So the problem is not put out across the county completely. It is mainly in the general fund and road and bridge. Emergency services, DHS, aren't really affected by the issues that we have in the general fund and road and bridge. And that's of course the majority of county employees. If you work for an elected official, you're in the general fund. If you work for land use, administration, public works, you're in the general fund. Road and bridge, you gotta know who you are. Go to the next slide. So I just want to show you again what the DA funding over time has looked like. You know, just going up and up and up and up. Just close that, will you?
Sorry, okay.
So this is, again, not sustainable. We have appealed this case to the court, to the Colorado Court of Appeals. We are hoping that they deliver, hopefully the next couple of weeks, a verdict in our favor, which means we could drop him to $300,000 if the court rules in our favor. But at the moment, we have to plan for not having a decision, or for things to stay how they are, regardless of whether you get a decision or not. Go to the next slide. Now, this is just property insurance. We didn't really have enough time to pull all the health insurance bills, but you guys have seen your health insurance go up year over year over the last several years. County pays both property insurance, health insurance, and our CWP, our workers' comp insurance, all of which have been seeing sort of similar increases over time. This is property insurance. As you can see, 2020, we're at 138. This year, the number they gave us on Tuesday was 344. It can still go up from there. They're still closing different lines of insurance, so we're not sure exactly where it's going to end up at, but that's probably a good baseline for where we're going to end up. So when we look at the general fund, we have about 60% of our expenses are personnel. So that's why we've had this discussion. We're talking a lot about personnel costs because it's the biggest single source of expenditures. Over the last several years, we've done our best to squeeze down on that all other category. That all other category is all your operational expenses. That's office supplies, that's gas, that's fuel. There's a limit to how low that goes. That's attorney costs, things like that. There's a limit to how low that goes. Unfortunately, we're sort of at that limit now. At the end of the day, the coroner's office can't take a cut on how many autopsies we have to do on paying for that. We can show that like that, but that's not realistic. Reserves, there are some reserves in the general fund for declared emergencies, and then the agency payments, that's the health department and the VA by themselves. And if you want to make sure where your department's budget has been over this time, they've all gone up a little bit, 2, 3, 4% over the last several years. But by and large, most of your departments have not seen big increases. Next slide. So here's the options that we have on the table. We've been able to think of so far. And part of the reason we want this meeting is because we want more input from you guys. Where if there are other things that we can think of, or if there are ways we can make adjustments to help lighten the load here. First off, the reduction in force. That's going to be a mix of layoffs and additional elimination. We don't have a good idea of which positions or who at this time. We're working to get to that sooner rather than later. I know that's uncomfortable to say that this is going to happen and not have a resolution for you right now, but the reality is we want to avoid that option. So we're trying to do everything we can to avoid that option. If we go down that route, the first thing we're going to do is roll out an early retirement package. Offer anyone that's looking at retirement a chance to say, all right, I'll leave early and be compensated for leaving early. And with that, we can shift positions around, we can help, people can apply to move to a role that's currently open instead of us letting someone go, being laid off. Furloughs, to get the budget in balance, you're looking at furloughing about 20% of what everyone makes. That's across the board. Every single county employee doesn't have to have restrictions because they're telling by statute. But that will essentially be closing every Friday. Of course, the sheriff's office and dispatch folks that have them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, wouldn't be affected by that, but the rest of us would. Benefit changes.
Can I expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah.
So what that would be, the furloughs would be, we would either go to a 9-hour day, 4 days a week, which would pay 36 hours. You're still losing 4 hours, 10% of your take home pay basically, or stick with 4 8-hour days and do a 32-hour pay period, which would be a 20% pay reduction. So just know that we've looked at this. This is absolutely the least attractive. This is the one we want to avoid at all costs. But just want you guys to be clear that, I mean, this affects your bottom line, and this is what we're trying to avoid, right? So go ahead.
So benefit changes. Currently, the county pays 85% of healthcare costs. Our employees pay 15%. An example of what we could do with benefit change, we could shift that to 75-25 split. That would trigger a qualifying event. So it would trigger an event that you can change your insurance. And you can consider other options. Some of you might want to consider Medicare, some of you might have spouses that are working for other employers, and that the math on who pays for insurance out of their paycheck might be different.
And with that, as far as we can tell, 75% would still be above the average of other employers in our community. So 85 is very generous, 75 would still be competitive.
And then lastly, outsourcing and functional changes. I know folks in the jail have gotten a call, but we had a company in Los Angeles County about combining jails. And we've also put the way transportation out to bid. I know that those folks there have been told that before, but those two things are options on the table that we're exploring. We are saying I'm not saying where either one of those will go. I don't think any of us are, but there are things being explored. Another shift at the same way is we switch Northern Bridge to 4 nowadays. From April to September, saves a little bit on startup costs and shutdown costs, and makes a difference in it. But with that, we're open to ideas, open to the thoughts, questions, comments, anyone that has them. So I'm gonna turn this around and hop off to the side, and we can.
Do you have a And you'd have to use the mic for them to hear you online, and we do have online participants.
Sky.
Everybody know that. Okay. Everyone else, you can figure out.
Would I don't know if this is what you.
Just go to the podium.
Would some sort of combination of those, like maybe voluntary furloughs, if enough people would volunteer that, if people who couldn't afford it could maybe keep their full time?
So that's
Please.
so
Repeat the question so that they know.
yeah. So Sky asked, make sure that's my Sky, about voluntary furloughs, or some combination of the options. And they made me think that I forgot to mention that more than likely we're not going to go with just one of these options. We're going to mix of options in order to get to something that saves the most money for the least amount of pay. As far as voluntary furloughs, nothing that we've thought of before, nothing we've discussed before, but I don't see any reason why we can't look at that as an option if we want to consider that. I'm looking at the commissioner to see if they have any thoughts there or not.
That is absolutely an option. If I may, just so you guys got this sheet, And this is the comparison of what it would cost for, based on the 85% current and the 75% potential, which would be 25% match out of the employees. Note that so this would still hit your pocketbook, but it is pre-tax dollars, so you would have less revenue, less income for the year to pay taxes on. Not very much of a incentive, but it is at least a little bit of a positive to it. So I think the number one thing that we would like to do is to get your input on what if we do that? What if we went with a 75-25 split? Is that, I know it's not attractive, but is it palatable? Is it doable to you guys?
Let's explain it a little bit, John. So if you're looking at the sheet on your top column, the first number in the pink, the $22.06, that would be if that is your plan. And we went from an 85% to a 75%. The difference to you in your paycheck would be $22.06 per month. Right?
No, this is the 85.
Yeah.
This is that 75. Yeah.
So that's the difference.
So this is what it would be. Right?
Can everyone see the comparison? Yep. One on one side, one on the other, 75%, 85%.
Purple bar. 75 versus 85 difference.
And keep in mind that the 75-85 is based on the dollar figures of option 2.
Do you want to come to the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, but mine are separate.
So for folks online, we have on the screen, this is an 85% option. And we'll sort of slowly scroll through so you can see the difference between the 85 and then on the second page, the 75% option. So Robert will sort of go up and down for you, let's see if you guys can see the difference there.
So I just want to explain the insurance costs overall.
You gotta project.
Get close.
Talk on. So the insurance costs are based on a percentage of option 2. So as you can see in the final column, the employer's portion is the same for each plan. It's the employee's cost that will obviously change per plan based on the percentage that was calculated off of option 2.
Does anyone have questions on how to read the sheet? You have 75 on one side, 85 on another.
Really? There's no questions, comments? Please come, would you come to the mic, please? I'm sorry to do that.
Angela, the mic is.
Is this mic working now? This is working.
Either way.
So I appreciate what the commissioners are trying to do, but I have a question for you guys. We're all here as county employees of you, okay? You are our bosses, okay? You are responsible for a budget by state statute, is that not correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, then why did you say it's a position, or why did you?
I'll take a stab at this. I don't disagree with you, but if you heard the three things that Carl said at the beginning, we went from $160,000 to $600,000 for a DA who may or may not be doing his job effectively. That is not a choice that we had. That budget came over the past 5 years, and that is the highest per capita in the state of Colorado. So that is a big thing that we have to swallow, and we have to figure out how. And that was a battle that we fought 2 lawsuits and lost. And we're still fighting that battle. So absolutely. But to go from 160 to 600 and change, it's a big difference.
Well,
Proposition.
If you, excuse me, but if you've been doing this for 2 years, arguing back and forth, you had knowledge of what was going on at the.
Absolutely not. Not only did we lose, he tried to sue all of the commissioners individually, $100 per day. So we didn't know what the result was going to be, nor did we think we were going to lose. We still don't believe that we should lose. That's why we're fighting it, and we're taking it above the current judge's head.
Well, you know, and this is just my opinion, like I said, I appreciate what you guys are trying to do, but I've been in this county for almost 24 years. I know how this county runs.
Sure.
I know how the commissioners run it. It's your responsibility. It's not ours. It's you that have made this mess, and now you're asking all of us to come and do the thing. Get our job. Go to bed. I don't know how you got sleep at night. Honest to God, don't.
Well, you should run for office because it's not easy and it's not fun, but we're doing our best. The second thing that we talked about was insurance rates going up 18%. Nobody could project that. That is higher than you've seen. You can't plan for the unknown. 18% is a big deal.
So the chairman Galusha made a comment that if it was palatable to everybody, if it's palatable to everybody, we all want to keep our jobs.
It depends on what we decide, Melanie. That's why we're asking for help. We're in this together.
So we got an increase in insurance, but yet you can't tell us that this is the final cut. Am I correct?
May I?
Please.
We're asking for input, and let me back up. This is my fault and Carl's fault. This isn't these two guys' fault. And I'm gonna tell you, when I gave up county administrator, I know that I didn't know everything. We brought Carl on, and I'm like, all right, you want to try something different? We're gonna try something different. So we've been trying some things, right? So for 3 years, we know that there are things that we have tried that aren't working. So now we're bringing that back to, we have to provide certain services. Some services we don't have to provide. And we're taking a hard look at some of the services we don't have to provide. One of the things that we're looking at is the jail, which 13 counties in the state of Colorado do not operate their own jail. So that's one of the things that we may farm out because, I mean,
Do you realize what that's gonna cost you?
We do.
we do.
No, you don't.
We've crunched all the
And
numbers.
you do. And you do.
Trust me, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't have a clue. You don't have a clue. I think the best thing we could do is recall you to Mr. Galusha.
I think that's a great idea. And if you can get the signatures, I will resign. I guarantee it.
Well, I'm lucky.
Get on it.
This is not the demeanor the meeting needs to go. This is hard for all of us and we need to work together as a county and figure this out. So we were asking you here today to give input, to let us know what your feedback was, to let us know if you have thoughts and suggestions, and I didn't get to finish the third. So the third is Proposition HH, which overwhelmingly the citizens said no to. However, they had a special session and still put mandates in. So we don't even know what that is going to look like for us yet. We are now going into December and we don't even know what our budget will look like. And that's thanks to the state. So those are 3 things we can't control. Those are 3 things that we couldn't predict for. I understand this is hard. It's hard for everyone, but you can't plan a budget when you have 3 unknowns and 3 very expensive unknowns. And so all we can do is put our heads together and see what we can do to make this work. What other questions do we have? Please.
So in the spirit of trying to find solutions here, and I recognize the points that you made as far as funding being in separate buckets, if you will. But with the potential sale of the south side of the Thorn Ranch being, forgive me, I believe it's around 1.2 million and our shortfall around 973K, might that be used to offset this staffing funding crisis?
We're at a 4% loan.
Mhm.
So it'd be a 4% borrowed money, which could give you some time, but it's not a long-term solution, but yes.
Okay. So that whole ranch was put down as collateral. So we have to pay off a portion of the loan in order to maintain the collateral balance for the remainder of the loan.
So some of it.
And then could you maybe clarify the role that the Employers Council would be playing in the potential layoffs? What that might look like at the staff level as far as their interaction? Will that be strictly behind the scenes consulting HR, or will they have a, for lack of better terms, hands-on assessment with staff?
So that depends on what route gets taken, but more than likely, what you'll see from them as staff people is that you'll have communications that are sort of, I guess, for lack of a better word, more professional. They'll help us put together communications about what's happening and what's going on, and help us walk through the process. I think the county hasn't done this in a number of years. Certainly none of us in administration were here the last time that happened. So we are, making sure that's done right and making sure that we have all of the particularities that public employees versus private sector employees get in this kind of situation is also important. So it's one, to make sure that we do this the right way and make sure that you guys get the information you need. And then two, to make sure that we follow the right steps.
And you feel that that assessment will be a more complete view of it? Basically, do you feel that a Denver-based third party would be able to provide you a better assessment than what you all can do right now? And I just say that, I don't mean any offense by this, and I realize it wasn't a unanimous, agreement across the board, but optically it looks really bad to be paying a consultant to assess layoffs when the root cause of those layoffs is the shortage of funding.
Sure.
But
So going back to the difference between one-time money and ongoing money. Again, that comes out of one-time money. And, you asked a question about the ranch. Can we use one-time money to plug the hole? Yes. So we did last year. Or did I say this year?
What ongoing?
But it doesn't fix the problem. Because at the end of the day, you can talk to the assessor's office. There's no way that property values are going to rise fast enough to close that gap before we run out of the one-time money. And then, as far as, do I think that they're going to give us the best of what we can do here? The answer is yes, because quite frankly, Angela is out for a week with payroll. So, we have a choice here between payroll being made on time and focusing on this. That's sort of my thought process anyway. I need to make sure payroll gets done on time and gets issued on time. And also to get this done in a timely fashion as well.
And we met with Employers Council before this meeting, and she had some really creative ideas, things that I don't think we had thought about and things that we could do to salvage positions. So I don't want to misspeak, and if I am, please correct me, but roughly we have around 130 employees with your elected officials included. And if you were to look at the option of reducing rates, the number of layoffs isn't really substantial, and we don't know what that looks like. Again, we don't even know what funding is coming down from the state yet, and it's budget time. But I think we're looking at 10 or less, and the more we pull into those other options, the fewer that number becomes. And we have a handful of open positions currently, so they don't have to be straight layoffs. It could be going from one department to another, an essential service versus non-essential service. So we're not talking 20%, 30%, 50 people. We're talking, let's talk about health insurance. Maybe we've been too generous for too many years because we are well above the local standard for what percentage of insurance an employer pays to their employees. So let's get more realistic with that. And the more realistic we can get, the fewer layoffs we can do. And again, some of those aren't going to be straight layoffs. They can be put into open positions.
thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Well, I'm understanding what you said. If you're road and bridge goes before.
Put close to the mic.
Road and bridge goes before 10s, we're good.
In regards to road and bridge,
If we go to 410.
are you asking if you go to 410s, we don't do layoffs in road and bridge?
And we're 3 guys short now.
I don't think there's a plan to lay off in road and bridge. Is that accurate?
So I talked a lot about the general fund. I didn't talk a whole lot about road and bridge. So let me go back and fix that. So 2019, road and bridge primary funding source is not property tax. It's HUTF, Highway Users Tax Fund. In 2019, that number was $2 million. In 2020, that number dropped to 1.6. We've been using the county's reserves to backfill road and bridge since then, our PILT reserves. So the answer is probably not, but it's really tight with road and bridge. You guys have done a really good job of keeping your expenses low, and we've tried to use as much of the one-time money as can to handle one-time issues. When we need to replace a truck engine, we take it out of the one-time funds rather than out of road and bridge. But we had to rebuild that. What was that, Dustin? That was a backhoe. It was a while ago now, but that had come out of road and bridge funds. So road and bridge is a little bit of a back and forth. It's much less clear to me, but I think I don't know if we're gonna have to do a layoff from road and bridge or not. We could just eliminate an open position for sure. So we're still playing around with road and bridge.
And,
We are, can you slow it down?
and we know that you're working with Skeleton Crews and we appreciate it, but the HUTF comes from the state and the Highway User Fund is coming from the state. And when that lessens and your roads increase and, insurance increases and your availability increases, what do? You have a gap. You have to fill it somewhere.
I guess my understanding was that we always ran off the tax user.
Yeah.
Also, right?
That's what we're talking about.
HUTF, Highway User Tax Fund. And
Right.
that's decreasing and and diesel's going up and the cost of equipment's going up and your cost of living is going up and the funding is decreasing.
And we're running old equipment that's breaking down.
And you need to start budgeting for new equipment. And how do you do that when you're running on a deficit? But we appreciate you, Jerry. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So if we don't know if the insurance will fix the problem, how can we make an educated decision?
It should bring us pretty close. That's the most financially feasible and best option is what we can tell unless you guys have a different option.
And going to the closing of the jail. Part of that decision, from my understanding, is because of the maintenance and fixing of the building because of the violations. Doesn't that come out of the one-time costs? And shouldn't that have been done long ago? Because ultimately, that is the one part of the sheriff's department that the commissioners are actually solely in charge of.
No, the sheriff is the warden of the jail.
Right, but the commissioners are in charge of the overseeing of the jail.
Well, then the same way we're in charge of overseeing everything else.
But it's the only part of the sheriff's department when there's a lawsuit that you guys are responsible.
Not responsible for every lawsuit.
And I think, yes, it is a factor. So you need a new kitchen, you need a new HVAC system, two very expensive items. But if you look at outsourcing year over year, it does save money and we have crunched the numbers and we haven't made that decision, but it is on the table. And it depends on how many people you have in your, that you're housing. But let's just say if you house your average, which is about 21, 23, you're going to have about 50% less in expenses. If you house your maximum, you're going to be right around what you're paying currently. So to say it wouldn't save money is not an accurate statement. To say how much depends on how many people you arrest.
The entire HVAC system is through the entire building.
Right.
So
There's three.
It's compartmentalized to three.
There's three units that run. There's one over the jail, one over
no,
the back part, one over the front.
Offices.
but they're all connected.
They are connected, but
Right.
they're all, but it's three separate
So-
units.
Not fixing it for the back part of the jail also affects the front part of where everybody else is.
It shouldn't.
Not for the air conditioning. So there's three air conditioners, right? There's three
But
swamps.
for the entire other part of the ventilation system.
Not exactly. So a big part of the ventilation system in that building are these variable air handlers that are attached actually sort of to the ducts as they come into the offices. That's the biggest part of that's one of the big parts of this. So we'll have to do the work, yes, for the front two zones, and the front two zones are the ones that have the biggest issues at the moment. But there is savings from not doing the jail.
But it's not at the moment. This has been for the entire 20-some years that I've been here.
I mean, my experience with this county is that we spend our days and nights on this side of the building anyway, fixing backlog maintenance from 50 years ago. I mean, John, a couple years ago, you started doing the tower, because pieces were falling down because they didn't do it right in the 90s. So yeah, you're right. That building has been bad. From talking to Bruce, it's been bad since it opened. But yeah, we should have addressed it a long time ago.
And if your decision is to close the jail, would we be losing our our detention staff?
Yes. So, that was the short answer. The long answer is we will have to keep a couple of people on for transports. And Los Animas County thinks that they need 3 new employees, which we would try to make or get them to take 3 of our current employees to help them out. So 5 employees in all likelihood would keep their jobs or still be employed either by Los Animas County or by us. So the HVAC system in the jail is not good. So we have a bid to fix that. The kitchen is down, right? So if we had the inmates out of there, we can reduce the cost of making those repairs because they don't have to deal with all the inmates while they're making their repairs, which makes it a lot easier.
And I agree with that, but that's saying it would be closed for a maintenance repair short term, whereas closing the facility is long term.
We have both options.
So we would do the same thing that Core Civic did. We would maintain the jail in an operatable standard. So if and this is my opinion, this is not, but it would be, we would look at a 1-year deal with Los Animas County to give us time to bring the jail up to standard, to repaint it with antimicrobial paint or whatever it is we had to use the last time, get the jail, get the kitchen fixed, get the HVAC system fixed. And then we would look at bringing them back if we're in better shape financially next year.
So part of the reason that our jail is not always at capacity is because of the district attorney's office with the rollover of that.
Mhm.
I agree with that, but that's the few days out. When the events happen, sometimes there's 3, sometimes 4 or more transports a day. So that takes a deputy out of the county for 2 hours plus. So to continue making it safe and to continue giving services, we'd have to increase our street employment.
So transport does not have to be post-certified. Who knows what's going to happen with the district attorney? We have to deal with that for 1 more year and then all bets are off, right?
But I'm not saying that they have to be post-certified. And I agree with that.
We would have to
but-
keep people for transport.
Right, 24 hours a day, because sometimes we make 3-4 arrests in the night.
Right.
And
But-
if you only have 2 to maybe even 3 at the most people on a shift,
Mhm.
and you have 1 in Levito, 1 in Gardner, and 1 here, that can't happen.
Sure.
So you don't have to have your transport person on duty all the time. You have your transport person on call. They don't have to work. They just have to be available, right? So they don't, that's not.
And there's a lot to think about and there's a lot of numbers to crunch and there's different options. So we have to take all those into consideration.
Bill.
Your boss.
Once again, you guys are walking all over you.
No, sir.
I just want just some clarification that stuff I read in the paper this morning. So you said you guys already voted on it and you asked me, you're gonna stop with overtime. Am I correct?
Yes.
So everything that, I went to work last Saturday at 6 in the morning. I left the office at 1 o'clock Sunday morning. So we're gonna give us more time off that we can't take now? You're gonna give us comp time. I've taken 10 days of vacation time this year. So now you're gonna give me more time that I can't take. I mean, what? You guys put out a letter saying you're gonna pay overtime till December 31st of this year. And now you're taking it away 1 month. Before, and you heard a lot, yeah, I mean. I'm trying to keep my clothes here, because you're taking money. You promised us one thing, and you're taking money out of our pocket. It's almost Christmas. You got 28 days before Christmas, and guys are gonna screw us over for overtime. I don't think you guys realize how much we've been working. I mean, I know you guys say they're all on call. When we're on call, we're actually working. I mean, I know some of the deputies have, with a lot of overtime. I haven't worked as much as theirs. But they have picked up the slack. We got what? Majority of our time this year, 8 deputies. And they've been picking up the slack, at least 4 of them, each deputy. and you guys are gonna take that away. I mean, I think you guys should just hold up to your word, April, December 31st. Yeah.
And
Just
before,
until you have that sun kind of heart.
and be farther in the hole for next year.
It's only, you only got one more month.
And we still haven't had any negotiations with the city of Walsenburg, which is the biggest part of your funding. I know, and it's not.
City walls, we're not talking about the Richmond County Sheriff Department as a whole. We can't go out in the county patrol out there because we gotta stay here.
I understand.
You know, and when somebody goes out there, what we gotta do? We gotta call somebody in to cover the city while we're out in the county, and it's just. Well, that's all I want to clear, Captain, stop now before.
I appreciate
I
it.
regret it. You're regret it.
Can we see the numbers that you guys are in negotiations with the Los Angeles County? So we can
Sure.
possibly help you, help us.
Sure.
Maybe making it help you from make an educated decision on that.
I think a work session is a great idea. I mean, we don't want to make a mistake either, take the jail away and say, oh, we did something wrong. So it's hard to project the future. It's hard to say, is this a good decision today, tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years? It's challenging. We'd love your input.
You just tell me off the top of your head what Los Angeles.
$65 per inmate per day.
55?
65. 65. And so it's just one other thing real quick. So we're asking you guys here, generally, the budget has to be adopted by December 15th. We have a break because of this, what the legislature did last week. So we have a little bit of time. We're not gonna drop a bomb on you guys and say January 1st, this is what's gonna happen. We may have another meeting, but our decisions will be out to the employees. And I think we're probably looking at February 1st at the earliest before we make a decision. So this is gonna be a nightmare for these three right here because the insurance increases go into effect January 1st. So they're gonna have to play games to get everything right on January 1st. And then again, things are gonna change February 1st. So for you guys, for the vast majority of the employees, we're gonna give you as much notice as we can, but these three are gonna take a hit. So please be gentle when you talk to the finance and HR.
And yes, thank you for bringing that up. That's why you're here. We want to have work sessions with you. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear what works best. You're in the departments, you're in the field, you know. We want to hear from you. So any workshops we can do, like on the jail or anything else, that's what we're asking for your help, is so we can start brainstorming.
Well, the sheriff's office is just one aspect of the entire county.
Right.
Everybody has their own issues. We all want to protect. And we're all part of this together. So in order to, you put up the numbers, you put up the statistics, then in order for us to be able to make educated decisions, we'd like to see what the variables are.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So commissioners, there's a couple of questions in the chat. The first was about positions that are currently open. So at least from my perspective, positions that are currently open, granted, there's some stuff that's it's I can't shift the secretary into a post-certified position, of course. But there are positions that are going to be filled next year, positions that are currently vacant or that we know are going to come vacant. So our goal is to be able to shift current employees into those positions rather than having to lay off people. And then there was a question.
Do you know the list of open positions by chance? I know some have closed and some are opened.
Do I?
Mhm.
Yes. So, there's an internal.
Use the mic behind you.
Okay. Well,
There's a microphone.
oh, I can speak into this.
Speak
Okay.
towards this way. People hear me.
Okay. Oh, okay. So if I can compose myself. So we have administrative assistant to the board, that title, is that correct? There's an internal DMV clerk position, and then there's detention, and then there's deputy. And I believe that might be it. That
Road and
might be
bridge.
all. There is a maintenance position for road and bridge, and then there's an operator position. However, temporarily, they're on hold. Since I have the microphone, if I may, thinking collectively as an entire county, the change in the healthcare rate and the reduction in the amount of taxes we pay, I know it's not significant, but it would be a change for all of us that would be fair and equal. There was a slight discussion about possibly having a variance for people who have dependents. We chose not to look at that path. In terms of evolving and moving forward, we have to make decisions, and that's why input is so very important. In terms of expectations, they're changing, you know, but they have to. I will do everything I can to hear everything that you guys have to say and to take it to the commissioners and other department heads. I just want you to know that I'm here to support you. So that's all I have.
And not only are there open positions, early retirement is still an option. So if someone chooses to retire early, they can be paid out for that. So that's an option as well.
Yes.
Yes, I'm glad you said that. So the projected for a new EOC was $10 million. We were able to repurpose a building for $5 million. We had $1 million saved at that specific fund, and Carl was just successful in getting the rest grant funded.
So that's still going?
It is still going, and we went from $10 million to $1 million that was already saved. So
Just to get it to an operational standard where you can occupy it, right?
Mhm.
So then you still didn't have to figure in the costs associated with operating with what we, not short term, but long term.
Sure.
Right. So that building gets operated out of the emergency services fund, and that fund doesn't have a problem. It's funded by 1% sales tax. We are currently using about half of next year's version of that sales tax to fill the general fund, about $600,000. But yeah, that building will also, part of the why the renovation is going to cost so much is because that building is going to be extremely cheap to operate compared to, say, this one or the sheriff's office. I think the projection for utility cost is 10,000-ish. The jail is like 45, 50-ish, just in utilities. This building is about 50-ish.
Excuse my ignorance, but if we have a property, we can just liquidate it, would reduce our long-term expenditures of maintaining that property. Is that something that we can look at?
Yes, so we were given the Rio Cacharas Inn, the old one. We're looking at getting rid of that. I'm looking at that. I think that's kind of the general consensus. Yeah. We have other properties. However, there was a lawsuit in, where was that? Debbie was talking about. There was a lawsuit that property that was acquired by the counties through treasurer's deed is not eligible for us to sell right now. So that lawsuit is working its way through the courts. Soon as we have a decision on that, then we have a few dozen other properties we're going to try to liquidate as soon as we can.
mostly raw lands.
Is it safe for me to say that you're not only just looking at cutting your labor expenses with these proposals, you're also considering other options that are viable to long-term resolving this problem?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This labor force is your biggest, but we're looking at saving across the board. I mean, Carl also got a huge grant to do energy savings in all of our buildings. So if you've seen, they're doing things like solar panels, replacing windows, anything to make it more energy efficient. Not only is that an expensive project, it was grant funded, and it's going to save you month after month for the next 50 years. So we're looking to save every penny we can, including utilities.
And we're looking at some other options too, combining some positions with, for example, the city of Walsenburg, the town of Levita, Cachara Water and Sand District. There's, if we can do IGAs where somebody else picks part of the bill, that's what those other things we're looking at too. So we're doing everything that we can think of. If you guys can think of something, we would love to hear it. That's really a big thing for us.
If you folks can share the data with the rest of us, including everybody in the room, that way everybody has what you're voting on.
Right.
Versus the presentation of what your ultimate decision was, which affects too much of that. If we can see that data, that'll help us all of us, I think, be able to make educated decisions on what we're willing to give up to help resolve this as well.
So that is on the county website. The preliminary budget's on the county website, and we can send out the link to you guys once this meeting's over with.
And we love to funnel questions. If you have ideas or thoughts, we want to hear them. That's why we're here today.
Well, but the proposed expenditure for Los Angeles County and San Antonio is not on the county website, is it?
No,
There, what you heard is about what we have.
Yes, that's it.
right, it's discussion, there's a ton of details. There's a new jail standards commission that's in place. That if they implement everything that they said that they're gonna implement. Including a full psychiatric evaluation upon intake, food nutritionist on staff 24/7. I mean,
A $450,000 body scanner.
Yeah, so it's crazy what,
Employing so many employees that if you are one gender or another, you have an option of who can do your pat down. I mean,
So-
it's wild.
so what we're looking at operating the jail for today. Is probably gonna change in January when the legislature adopts the recommendations by the Jail Standards Commission.
But being with us being rural jail, would there be any type of, we're not like Denver County, we're not like any of those big jails. They would not, I mean, so we would have to go by that, that's something that.
They don't-
we couldn't-
They don't care.
Yeah, they don't care.
It's in, right now, it's in the fiscal analysis by the JBC to see what it would cost to implement. So the legislature, if they want to implement this, they're probably gonna have to come up with some money to help those of us that can't afford a full-time psychiatrist on staff. So, or
So
some,
basically be funding from the state or somewhere else to help our county to be able to do that.
yeah,
We hope.
as long as they can afford it.
Maybe, yeah, they don't always pay those things, they don't always fund that. I
Yeah,
know I've been on massive amounts of calls with nature, Zoom calls and things of this nature, and then we were just at a conference just the first part of this week. And you wouldn't believe how many unfunded mandates that the state puts on us is absolutely crazy. And I've been on calls where the vast majority of the counties are against what is being proposed by the state. And it gets passed anyway. They don't care what we have to go through down here. In the rural counties, it just doesn't matter to them because they want, like what Erica just said. If you have to have a $450,000 scanner or a psychiatrist to be able to assess everybody on when they first come into the jail, and these things are extremely expensive. And then just with finally, because I could rant for way too long, but they were talking about the property taxes, which is going to affect everybody's bottom line on being able to pay for these things. And the amount of changes that they had in there, we already voted against H&H, but they're going around all that anyway, because they want the money no matter what, doesn't matter what the voters say. But the things that they were talking about in that session, you could have 10 lawyers in there and you're going to get 40 different decisions on how it could be construed, because it changes every time you look at it. It was absolutely insane to try to figure out what the numbers were going to be at the end result.
And Chrissy,
So
I think
it's difficult.
to your point, I think that's why people are looking to co-op. I think that's why
Yeah,
people are
it is.
regionalizing jails, and we don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive. When you start seeing a trend, there's 13 counties that have teamed up together to have a regional jail. It's got to be for a reason. And so that triggers something in my mind. Why are they doing this? And is it something we should look at? It's not something we're going to do, but it's something we're going to look at. If it's a trend, you have to be a part of it. You have to see why. Does it work or does it not?
But, and it also depends on how many arrests they have.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of the county jails that have closed, it's because they were only maybe arresting one person or two people a week, or even 3 to 4 people, maybe a month. As to where sometimes we have that in an entire day.
Right.
Where we arrest that many people in one day.
But if you look at best case scenario and worst case scenario, and it still makes sense, there's no reason you shouldn't look further.
Well, is there any way, this would be a voter thing, what if I don't know, I'm just asking.
if they did it like a 1% or 1 cent sales tax to help fund whatever we need, building maintenance here. I mean, is that an option?
Do you as citizens think you're gonna keep funding sales tax increases? I don't know. We can always try. But times are tough for everyone. Your expenses are going up just like our expenses are going up.
Well, I would rather that sales tax go up to, things that we need to work on county rather than funding the district attorney.
You and me both.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would be willing to pay it, like, what's gonna help everybody keep a job and
Yep.
make sure we can keep our buildings operational and things like that, then yes, I would not mind paying it.
Mhm.
But, that's why we all voted down one for the district, because nobody wanted to support it.
And look at us now. He got what he wanted.
Yeah, more than we want.
Got more.
We're gonna have deputies make arrest anyhow, so we're gonna get jobs.
So there are a couple questions online. Leah Hill, so no, the jail is not included in that 10 number. That's beyond the jail. And then for now, that's a question. So some of these things we can't charge for, but I don't know, Bruce, VIN inspections. Extra patrols. And some of the elected officials, if you guys have ideas about your departments and things you could charge for. Most of these things are set by statute. We can't adjust them. But we're certainly open to looking at fees for things that we can put fees on.
We've asked these elected officials that are sitting up here, are there fees that they can increase? And they have looked into it and they are set by statute. So that's true for clerk and recorder, assessor and treasurer. They're charging what they can. As far as jail, I don't know. I haven't asked Bruce that question, but these three ladies have been asked that, including Debbie.
And just for Leah, so this is a discussion, this is an investigation into operating a jail. This ain't a done deal.
No.
This is not a done deal yet. So
But
we have a ways to go.
Obviously, it's running a jail for any kind of people are expensive. That's usually one of your biggest ones.
that's where your lawsuits are coming from too.
Safety and, right, absolutely. There's just so much involved. And it's a big point of contention right now, but that point of contention is affecting everybody, not just the sheriff's office, but I mean, obviously it's affecting everybody, so everybody has the best of interest in coming up with a solution.
Or in the same thing with the waste transfer station. Are we gonna put it out for bid? Are we gonna keep it? We don't know, but we would not be doing our job if we didn't look at all the options. So maybe someone can come in and run it more effectively. Maybe they keep those employees. We don't know what that looks like, but we have to explore all options. That's what we're here to do.
So since the jail is not part of the layoffs, if you decided to keep the jail, would that increase the number on the other side of all the layoffs?
No.
Depends on what the city offers.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We also have a fourth unknown. What is the city gonna pay you? Don't know. We know we have to pay for it. We don't know what they're gonna contribute.
At that point, can we just give them back their police department and let them deal with the city of Walsenburg and us just walk away?
They hired a company to say if it was feasible for them, and the company said it is not feasible for them.
But if they're not gonna pay us what they need to pay us, is that an option that we have to tell them basically to take a hike and figure out their own police department?
I would hypothesize that 90% of our efforts for this, our responsibilities as a sheriff's office, 90% of our time is spent dealing with criminality.
Walsenburg, yeah.
Which unfortunately, everybody in the county is losing services because they can't even get out there and take care of it.
We were projecting about 75% of the calls come from the city of Walsenburg. So we're looking for the data to support that. So why we're receiving less than 50% in funding is not going to continue, in my opinion.
Werner is on, wants to meet and speak. Go ahead, Werner.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So unlike pretty much everyone else there, I don't live in the county. I may work in the county, but I don't live there. So I feel like I may have an outside perspective a little bit. Pardon me if I speak a little bit out of my tuchus, but hopefully respectfully. I work midnight shift with the sheriff's office on patrol. I hardly ever go outside the city because we always need someone within the city. And to cut the jail, to have someone on call when there is usually about 2 of us, most of the time on shift at night, puts us in a very difficult position because there has been numerous times when at 0 dark 30, I have put someone in cuffs because they either have a warrant or they broke the law. So now I'm going to have to put them in cuffs, wait for the transport officer to get there, to process them and take them in custody and transport them. At what point am I going to be free to go back to patrol, to be able to back up my partner? And how long am I going to be putting them at risk for going to a call where they might be going to the domestic violence, to a shots fired call, to any number of other calls where now we have officer safety in line? And if that happens, am I going to be having to go to officer safety or go to prisoner safety? Because there's a liability either way for the county. I don't want to let my partner die. I don't want to let anyone else's safety go to basically crap because there's now a huge safety issue there. And now we're having to tie up a lot of other resources. What plan is there? May I ask respectfully, to make sure that there is no risk of safety being compromised?
So right now, we don't even know where the booking will take place. Will the transport, will it be immediately handed off to a transport officer and booked in Los Animas County, which is, in my opinion, the best way to do that? That takes the heat off of Huerfano County completely. So if you have someone in cuffs and you get a call out, we still have the holding cell there, right? So you could put them in the holding cell until the transport officer gets there. But well, let me finish, please. We don't have all of the answers yet, so we're still doing investigation on this. And so your question is valid, and we don't have a solid answer.
And basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Angela, you're about half staff currently because of the dilemma with the city of Walsenburg. So when the city of Walsenburg contract is finalized, you will have more deputy hires if we can find people to hire.
Correct.
So
if we can find people to hire.
right. So we're not hiring anyone as deputies because we don't know what the future of the city of Walsenburg holds and what that amount looks like. But when we finalize that, then we can look to hire the appropriate amount of deputies. I know. And we are glad that this study is finally over so we can. Yeah. Did someone in the back have a comment or middle, I should say? Raquel, is that you?
I mean, with what he was talking about, having a holding cell and waiting for somebody to transport from another county, I mean, you still have to have somebody manning that.
Right.
In that area. So, this was the efficiency of the deputies that we have, but instead of it makes sense, obviously nobody has answers, just kind of a thought or idea. But at the same time, how much liability are we still adding to the county because of the city not being covered or liability with the deputies not being covered? I mean, it's just on and on and on.
Those are all things we have to work through.
Looking at jail, honestly, I feel like that's not, it shouldn't even be an option at this point. I know that there's so much that needs to be done in the jail, and it's costly, but at this time, it's gonna cost more money in the long run to be able to do all of this. You still, if it's a year, close it for a year so that we can figure out how to fix the jail. We're still out paying all this money. Getting somebody on call for transport, like Warner said, I mean, how long is that gonna take? As a dispatcher, having on-call entities like fire and EMS, it takes a long time for somebody on call to get up, to get ready, to be able to go ahead and take this call and come out and do the transport. Meanwhile, we're leaving the other officers at risk. We're leaving the city, the county at risk. So it's liability. It's increasing the liability, I feel, for everybody involved.
Sure. And let me be clear to say, if it makes no sense financially, we're not going to do it. That's what we're looking at as options. So we need your input and we need you to be there.
necessarily the financial part either. It's the safety part.
Sure. I agree, but we have to keep in mind the amount of lawsuits that come out of the jail. That is a real financial figure, and that is a lot of liability.
Yeah, and I think it might even increase after the fact, not having the jail and then dealing with the people and the
And it could.
criminals and the SO units and the community.
Sure. If that's what we need to look at.
The one thing I want to say about the lawsuit.
Can you give him the mic?
Can you hear me okay?
It's the more for online.
It's for online.
It's in reference to the lawsuits. We're in that line of business. When I became sheriff, you go through the new Sheriff's Institute. The first thing they tell you, it's not if you get sued, it's when you get sued.
Of course.
And I've been sued dozens of times. And at all the times that I've been sued, we've only paid out a percentage on one case.
Sure.
Everything else was dismissed or proven wrong. So, we're going to get more lawsuits, jail, no jail. The fact of the matter is we do what we're supposed to. We cover ourselves and we're not going to be paying out on them.
Sure. But it's safe to say that jail is the majority of the lawsuits.
Again, out of all the lawsuits, we've only paid out a percentage medical on.
But all the lawsuits that come that we could have lost, the majority came from the jail.
I'm sorry.
Of all the lawsuits total, win or loss, they've come from the jail, the majority, more than 50%.
They probably do.
Okay.
And that's another question. And I'm sure we need to do a workshop. The four of us or the five of us on what's good and what's bad about closing the jail.
Absolutely.
But one of the questions is Los Angeles going to take that responsibility?
Yes,
They'll take the responsibility of lawsuits.
it'll be their jail. It's their jailer, jailee. Yes.
Well, and again, I think we need to do a workshop because I think there's a lot more, we closed the jail, 6-7 years ago when we did the cleanup and the repaint.
Mhm.
And that was in January at one of our slowest months. It was a nightmare. During the summer courts, I've already talked to Judge McKisson about it.
Yeah.
And again, it's just, we're gonna have to sit down and go over it all.
It's up to everyone else. I think it's safe to say we need to have a jail workshop. There's nothing that's finalized. Like I said, if we have to be proactive, not reactive. We have to look at all options. Let's put all the jail items on the side besides whatever Melanie has to say. We'll have a workshop because that's just one small portion of all the other things going on in the county.
So I guess that leads me to ask the board as a whole, what do you know about our contract with the state of Colorado for JPPS and land services?
We just had a whole workshop on that, so. What are your questions specifically?
Tell me, what is it? If you had a workshop, what is it?
It's
How do you run the program? You know how to run it?
I guess give me some quick questions. Do I know how to run a program? No. Have we been briefed on exactly what it entails? Absolutely.
Tell me what it entails.
I'm not gonna go into that. Do you have any more specific questions?
No, I think it's, you guys want to talk about liability issues and being sued. You guys you're the governing board. I don't care what you think. Maybe you should educate yourself a little bit more. Maybe you should spend 2 days, 2 shifts, each one of you. Go work in that jail. Go see what those people are about. Go see what the substandard is in the construction of that jail. You push on one of those cinder block walls enough, you get enough pissed off prisoners. We get prisoners that smash their heads into the glass and break 1-inch glass.
So why wouldn't we outsource it?
You don't have a clue, Erica.
Okay, I just,
You
if
don't
it's in,
have a flipping clue, and all I keep hearing about is you want to have all these workshops. Call it. Do a workshop.
we will.
I think you'll be well educated.
Thank you. I hope so. That's the plan of a workshop.
Yeah.
What other questions do we have?
Talking of certain areas where we might be able to draw back on, and the concern that y'all have expressed over unfunded state mandates. One of the greatest liabilities, as far as I see, regarding unfunded state mandates is the Gardner Public Improvement District with ever evolving drinking water regulations. Has the board considered possibly getting that back under local Gardner control as it was prior to 2008? I mean, the county stepped in, they really bailed them out of the jam. And perhaps with, at least the perception that I have, it seems like there's somewhat of a renewed interest on the part of the folks there in Gardner, is taking ownership of the community and sort of reestablishing what was. Could that be a possibility, especially just with, I'm sure you all are aware of the revised lead and copper rules that are gonna be an axe kicker for staff, and it's just gonna continue to expand. What are your thoughts on possibly looking at that?
I'd love to give that back. I would love to give that back.
I think we have a few gift baskets for a few different entities, so.
Yeah.
And we had a discussion earlier about, you know, what it looks like and how, if you can outsource it, because the mandates are getting more strict, and one person, you're gonna start missing it. And you know that the best.
Just wanted to throw that out there, you know, possibility.
Yeah, and we've started discussions with a few people in Gardner. We haven't thrown a proposal out there yet, but we are having those discussions.
And that's been a consistent theme, you know, why are we always playing big brother and big sister and mother and father to these municipalities, to these towns? You know, when we're looking at layoffs and they aren't, they need to start paying their fair share, and there's a long list, and we plan to have those hard meetings too. You need to start taking back some of the things that we're footing the bill for. What else, guys?
We could also look at charging like Movida on Harold's days off where we have to cover for those 48 hours.
We covered for 8 months.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a marshal.
Absolutely. I mean, it's got to be a give and a take, but when it's a take.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming. I know that nobody's happy with me. Okay. Start the recall. I'm in.
Thank you.
I'd like to say that we're in this together and we're one county and we need to figure it out together. And we'd love to hear from you, whether it's a private phone conversation or an email, or you want to have a one-on-one, or we could have workshops. It's good.
I don't want to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Good.
But that would be jumping the chain of commands that are put in place. Are you guys authorizing us to go straight to you with those questions and comments and things?
I would do that through email. Don't just, you know, give us a call or something, but yeah, through emails. If you have a question, copy your superior. Make sure you copy them. All right, so we're not jumping, you're included.
That's for elected officials. From my staff, I don't care to talk to the commissioners.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do that, would you not want to just start the whole county-wide email, like for this, that's call for this meeting? That way everybody needs to understand your question. It doesn't matter. Everybody on staff.
I mean, I think we're probably gonna have to have another meeting to finalize all this.
No, I wouldn't include everybody.
Yeah,
on
that
big
was
county
crazy.
On a big bulletin board thing. No, let's do individual emails, because there may be something that comes out of it that we can share, but for the most part, I think we're just gonna have conversation back and forth and look at pros and cons.
There's a lot
But-
of brains in here. We can all, you know, come up with solutions together. Yes.
I'm trying to say Gardner took in with the PIDs. Now, would that be self-sufficient enough for Gardner residents to be able to keep up with it, or is there a program upstate or somewhere that can help them do it?
Bachara does it.
And again, it costs money to run. That's why we're doing it. Right?
Well, there was an issue with the past board about how the funding was handled. But I think that we have it in place pretty much so that the fees, the monthly fees cover the operating costs. The special improvements are generally done through grants from the state or loans with a forgivable principal. But they do require a match. What Carl has been really good at is getting the Colorado Water Conservation Board and the State Health Department funding, and then matching that with our Department of Local Affairs money. So far, it's been a wash for us, except the outflow, the change of the outflow on the sewer plant. That's going to cost us.
So it should be sustainable if it's not mismanaged. They do that well in Kuchara. Kuchara is self-sustaining.
That's kind of not, expected.
I think that depends on the staff.
Yeah.
I think Kachar Water and Sand has a mill levy, and Gardner would probably need one too. Well, it can't just run on just the system by itself now.
Especially for breaks.
Road test, countywide employees, that'd be a wonderful thing.
In regards to regularly, randomly,
Random.
okay,
All right, well, thank you, guys. Reach out. You have our emails are easy enough to find on the website, so please feel free to send us emails.
and I'm happy to stay after if anyone has any additional questions. Thank you.
I got one if it's okay.
It's tough and it's not fun, it's not easy, but we'll get through it together.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
I got a question if that's okay.